There's going to be three things that you're able to do when you know something at a university, right? When you're going to school and you become knowledgeable, what is this ability that you have? What is this competence you have? The first is the ability to make up your mind. So when philosophers talk about knowledge, what they're talking about is the ability for you to face some kind of situation, some kind of material, right? You might be given a text. At CBS, often it'll be like this. You'll get a case, right? Or you'll get some sort of set of data, some information that you have to analyze, right? And what you are good at in your discipline, be that finance or marketing, what you are good at in your discipline is to make up your mind about it, right? You are good at deciding what's going on there and what it means, right? And so philosophers will say what you're good at is forming beliefs, right? So you can go from a state where you have no idea about something, no opinion on it. You can look at the material, and then you can say, okay, now I believe something about this, right? I have an opinion about what's going on in the world, right? I have an opinion about what's going on in this company, right? I have an opinion about what situation this country is in, right? I understand this market, right? So I formed a belief. Does that make sense? First ability that you want to have, if you're knowledgeable about a subject at university, is the ability to make up your mind, right? Some of you will be good at it in one area, and some of you will be good at it in another area. That defines your competence, your discipline. Have you all made up your minds about stuff in the past? Hope you have. And I imagine that you have not just made up your mind, but sometimes you've had the experience of being wrong. So you've made up your mind and then discovered a few weeks later that you were not right about what you thought was going on in this case material, in this theory, in this newspaper article, in this organization, or in this country, right? So you reached a conclusion and you found it to be wrong. You found it to be wanting, right? Philosophers will say that's a great moment for you to experience something important, namely the truth. Right? You don't just want any old belief, you want a particular kind of belief, namely the kind of belief that is true, that is a correct description of the world in which we live. Right? And we don't need to philosophize more about that, as long as you get this idea that some beliefs are better than others, in the sense of some beliefs get the world right and some beliefs don't get it right. Whatever that means, you can take to your philosophy of science class, your methods classes, and so forth, and you can have lots of interesting discussions about it. You can even have interesting discussions about it with me, because I am a philosopher by training, but it's not really important for your writing. It's just that you know that there's that distinction, that belief itself has a quality, right? And then you might say, well, isn't that all we need to know about making up your mind? You should make up your mind in such a way that you have true beliefs, then you're a knowledgeable person, right? And of course, there's a little more to it than that, or I wouldn't have a third space, right? You're all hopefully going to make up your minds about me over the next 45 minutes, because I'm going to ask you to do something, right? I'm going to tell you, here's some things you should do, and they will make you better writers and perhaps better people, right? And if you're going to do those things, you're going to have to trust me. You're going to have to make a judgment about my trustworthiness, right? As an advisor, as a consultant, as a coach. And I'm not, I'm certainly not closed to the idea that there might be differences of opinion about this. So in the break, you might kind of compare notes. And some of you will say, I trust him, he seems like a trustworthy guy. And some of you will say, he seems kind of dodgy. I don't think I'm going to do what he says, right? These are legitimate positions you can take. Now, suppose one of you has decided to trust me and decided to follow my advice and is going to give this a shot, right? And then suppose that you are challenged in the break as to whether or not, by somebody who thinks that's not a good idea, Thomas should not be trusted. And then suppose you defend your point of view in the following way. You say, aha, but I know he can be trusted because he has a beard, right? Bearded men are always to be trusted. You know this, right? And what kind of argument is that? It's not a very good one, I hope you all recognize. And most of us will immediately recognize that as the expression of a prejudice, right? Which is a famously bad way to form beliefs. You don't want to form your beliefs based on prejudice, right? Even if, as in this case, you formed a true belief. Because I can be trusted, it's just not the fact that I have a beard that gives you a good reason to do so, right? So philosophers will say you have to believe something, you have to make up your mind, and that belief has to be true for it to count as knowledge, but that's not good enough. It also has to have a justification. It has to be a justified true belief, right? And I just gave you a classic definition of knowledge. It's 2,000 years old, and most philosophy courses in the theory of knowledge and epistemology will start there. Right? They'll say it's something like justified true belief. Maybe it's a little more complicated. There's other things we can take up and discuss, but that's a good place to start. Right? So I've just given you some tools to decide whether or not something should go in one of your papers. Does this express a justified true belief that I hold? And I really caution you against being cynical about the belief part. Right? You might think justified truths would be good enough for your papers, right? But take that extra step and internalize it as a belief you actually hold about the world, because that'll be really good for your style. If you're actually writing about things you believe, right, you are going to get a much stronger style. You'll have much better sense that underneath your writing there's an iceberg of knowledge, right? And that's the sense you want to develop. So really take that, just that extra little mental step of saying, okay, I know this is the right answer. It's a justified truth, right? But do I really believe it, right? Do I really get it? Right? Work that through. That'll be helpful to you.